Your appointment to FEMA should be finalized within the week. I've already discussed the matter with the senator.
I take it he was agreeable?
He didn't really have a choice.
Has he been infected?
Oh yes, most certainly. When I mentioned that we could put him on the priority list for the ambrosia vaccine, he was so willing it was almost pathetic.
This plague, the rioting is intensifying to the point where we may not be able to contain it.
Why contain it? Let it spill over to the schools and churches. Let the bodies pile up in the streets. In the end, they'll beg us to save them.
Robert Bob Page is a wealthy industrialist, philanthropist, and the founder and owner of Page Industries. He was a prominent member of the Illuminati and one of the leaders of the Illuminati's Majestic 12 division until sometime during the 2030s. At this point, he uses Majestic 12 to overthrow the Illuminati, becoming the wealthiest and most powerful man in the world. Bob Page serves as the main antagonist of Deus Ex and the overall main antagonist of the Deus Ex series. Sometime prior to 2020, Page married his long-term partner, a behavioral therapist, and founded his company Page Industries. Originally, people doubted that the holding company would do well, but that changed when Page Industries acquired VersaLife and later the patent for neuropozyne. By the time he was 31, Page was a billionaire. During his Illuminati years, Bob Page was the protege of Morgan Everett, a member of the Illuminati Council of Five. Everett, who himself aspired to lead the Illuminati, groomed Page to eventually succeed him. A close relationship formed between the two, with it being likened to the relationship between a father and son. Everett mentored the younger man. Although Page was a good student, he was impatient and short-tempered. He, along with Everett, led the Majestic 12 division of the Illuminati, which concerned itself with the matters of a technological nature. In 2026 and 2027, Bob Page is working with other Illuminati members on a biochip initiative. Their plan is to distribute a biochip that would allow the Illuminati to control mechanically augmented people. Page participates in multiple Illuminati conferences with fellow members Hugh Darrow, Zhao Yunru, William Taggart, and Elizabeth Duclair to discuss the details of the biochip initiative as well as other schemes. In one conference, Zhao and others report to Page that almost everything is in place for the biochip initiative to move forward, but Hugh Darrow reports that he is still working on finding the correct nerve interface for the biochip. However, Darrow says that he now knows where to look thanks to David Sarif. A text message then appears on the conference screen indicating that Sarif Industries researcher Megan Reed has found a gene sequence that the Illuminati need. Of concern is that Reed is about to present her discovery to the public. Reed's discovery is a genetic framework that would allow people to get augmented without the need for neuropozyne, the drug that the mechanically augmented currently need to take to counteract Darrow deficiency syndrome. VersaLife, which is owned by Page, is the only company that produces this drug. The Illuminati have been utilizing VersaLife's monopoly to maintain steadfast control over augmented people through this dependency. As such, Reed's discovery would take this control away if allowed to go public. Thus, Page orders the tyrants to attack Sarif Industries headquarters and abduct Reed and her team before they could head to Washington, D.C. with their findings. Reed and her team are taken to the Omega Ranch, where they are put to work on the biochip control scheme at the Illuminati's behest. The biochip initiative moves forward when the Illuminati conduct a global recall of biochips, resulting in augmented people receiving new biochips constructed for the Illuminati's scheme. The biochips were intended to grant Illuminati control over augmented people. However, Hugh Darrow has other plans and broadcasts a signal that causes augmented people who received the new biochips to go into a killing frenzy, an event known as the Hawk Incident. Earlier in 2027, one of the tyrants, Gunther Hermann, suffered severe injuries on a mission in Geneva, Switzerland, when Anna Kelso caused Gunther to crash his vehicle into the Rhone River. After Gunther was recovered by Majestic 12 operatives, Page opted to extensively reconstruct Gunther using cybernetic augmentations so that he could be redeployed at a later time. By the time of the Org incident, the tyrants have now become defunct due to the death or defection of its remaining members. Sometime in 2027, Zephyr Biotech is in the business of manufacturing the drug Riazine, which is to serve as a cheaper alternative to neuropozyne. Although Zephyr publicly positions itself as a competitor to neuropozyne manufacturer VersaLife, Zephyr is in fact a proxy firm under the control of Page, and the actual manufacturer of Riazine is VersaLife. Page's true agenda behind Zephyr and Riazine is never revealed, although you can speculate that it's something akin to new Coke coming out for a while, being not as good, and then classic Coke coming back. After the Org incident, Megan, not knowing Bob Page's ties to the Illuminati and her abduction, later takes a job with one of his companies, likely VersaLife, after she was rescued from a mega ranch. It is implied that she aids him with research relating to nanotechnology and potentially nanotechnological augmentations. By 2029, Page has Megan working at VersaLife's San Francisco Roca Seca Beach facility on a chemical agent meant to eliminate the need for neuropozyne in augmented people by deleting the gene that causes glial tissue buildup. However, as it is unfinished, it causes the opposite effect and ends up killing the person instead. This chemical agent becomes known as the Orchid and would later be deployed as a poison. Sometime in 2028, Bell Tower Associates goes bankrupt. Page acquires Garm, G-A-R-M, a black site facility in the Swiss Alps that was owned by Bell Tower prior to its bankruptcy. Bell Tower also sells its Special Forces division to an undisclosed buyer. The circumstances suggest that this undisclosed buyer was Page. Page and the Illuminati use Garm to covertly house and train Shadow Operatives, a group that has inherited the role of the now defunct Tyrants. The Shadow Operatives Garm operate under the direct orders of Page and refer to him as Mr. Majestic, a name referencing Page's leadership role in Majestic 12. In 2029, the Illuminati are working on a new initiative to control augmented people, the Human Restoration Act. If passed by the UN, the act would force orgs to carry a control chip implanted in them and keep proper documents, or be forced to live in segregated org communities. However, several voices oppose the act, including Talos Rucker, leader of the Augmented Rights Coalition, and Nathaniel Brown, CEO of the Santo Group, which is in the business of building safe havens for the augmented. The Illuminati's Council of Five, along with Page, hold a secret meeting to discuss plans to ensure the passage of the Human Restoration Act. The group agrees to send Volkard Rand and Stanton Dowd to New York, where the UN will soon vote on the act. Afterwards, Lucius De Beers, the Illuminati leader, speaks in private with Everett and Page. De Beers and Everett agree that Rand and Dowd might not succeed in getting the act to pass. De Beers therefore tells Everett that he's opted to proceed with an alternate strategy. Page tells De Beers that everything is in place. In response, De Beers tells Page that it is Page's chance to deliver. De Beers then instructs Page to activate the sleeper cell, referring to a group of sleeper agents embedded in the Ark. Part of their plan is for this group, led by high-ranking Ark member Viktor Marchenko, to carry out incidents that would turn public opinion against Ark and augmented people in general, which would increase support for the passage of the Human Restoration Act. Page's sleeper cell first orchestrates the bombing of the Rosicka station in Prague. Page also orders Joseph Mandley, director of Interpol's Task Force 29, to instruct his TF-29 subordinate Jim Miller to implicate Ark for the train station bombing. Page is also concerned that Talos Rucker is getting close to uncovering their inside man within Ark, unnamed but suggested to be Marchenko. Thus, Page orders Mandley to proceed with the assassination of Talos Rucker using the Orchid, even though Mandley expresses concern that some members of the council might not approve of such an action. The assassination is carried out by the sleeper cell under Mandley's instructions. Besides alleviating the pressure on their inside man, the assassination also allows Marchenko to become the leader of Ark. The next phase is to deal with Nathaniel Brown. Page had predicted that the death of Rucker would force Brown to rally support against the Human Restoration Act. This prediction turns true when Brown organises a safe harbour convention to be held at the Apex Centre in London to persuade UN delegates to vote against the act. Page aims to have Brown and the UN delegates hosted by Brown to be killed using the Orchid and to make it look like the work of augmented terrorists. To achieve this goal, Page deploys Marchenko to lead the Shadow Operatives stationed at Garm to attack the Apex Centre, an operation codenamed Storm Surge. Although Marchenko is useful for his connections to Ark, Page instructs the Shadow Operatives that Marchenko is fully expendable and should be terminated by his kill switch if he deviates from the plans. Storm Surge succeeds in framing Ark as a terrorist group, but the Human Restoration Act may or may not pass, depending on whether Adam Jensen is able to prevent the assassination of Brown and the UN delegates attending the convention. After the events in London, Page and the Council of Five hold another meeting. Volkard Rand is angry that he was not informed of the actions that others put into play, presumably referring to the actions carried out by Page as a result of De Beers' instructions. In the meeting, Page mentions the name Adam Jensen when Everett reports that Interpol has an augmented agent working for them. Sometime after Adam Jensen's destruction of the Hiron project in 2027, Page consults with Morgan Everett about the possibility of salvaging some of the wreckage for a project they are working on, namely the Morpheus Initiative. Together, they create a prototype for the next generation global surveillance system, Echelon 4. Based on their work in creating Morpheus, the prototype of Echelon 4, Page and Everett developed Daedalus, an AI program that would help the Illuminati keep track of and control all global communications. Majestic 12 also conducts research in nanotechnology, leading to the development of nanites. Nanites are used in nano-augmentations and in other more sinister technologies such as biological weapons. With the help of Everett, Bob Page eventually became a member of the Council of Five, the innermost circle of the Illuminati. However, as time goes on, Page grows impatient with Everett's unwillingness to use these new technologies to establish absolute control over mankind and the Illuminati's slow, gentle ways. He rebels against them by leading Majestic 12 in a coup that sees the whole of the Illuminati infrastructure being taken over by Page and his allies. Page assassinates Beth Duclair, destroys Stanton Dowd financially, forces Everett into hiding. After the coup d'etat that catapults Majestic 12 to the forefront of world domination, Page, being the undisputed leader of the organization, becomes the most powerful person on Earth. Before breaking away from the Illuminati, Page began research into nano-augmentations and searched for a person whose body would be compatible with the technology. He found a match in a boy named Paul Denton and secretly made multiple clones of the child. One of these clones grows up to be JC Denton. Paul and JC are raised as brothers by their parents, while Majestic 12 secretly oversee their lives. At some stage, after the Majestic 12 coup, Page decides that the Denton parents are dispensable and orders his lieutenant, Walton Simons, to terminate them. He is unhappy with the free-thinking nature of Paul Denton and is concerned that he will not remain loyal to MJ-12. For this reason, he wants his brother JC to be put under stricter supervision and thus sends him to an MJ-12-run school in Switzerland. Here, he intends to have JC indoctrinated with a sense of unswerving loyalty to his superiors. Page intends to use prototype nanotechnology augmentations on others such as Paul, JC, and Walton Simons before using the perfected version on himself. As the head of the conglomerate Page Industries, which includes the lucrative VersaLife, Bob Page becomes a trillionaire and hence the richest man on Earth. This enables him to fund expensive projects such as the development of the Internet Protocol Aquinas and the Denton Brothers augmentations. According to a press release about Aquinas, the project cost almost 1 billion credits in total. The Aquinas protocol is used by Page to secretly monitor internet communications from the Majestic 12 base in Area 51. Everett is unable to come out of hiding because Page controls internet communications. As part of Majestic 12's plan to establish absolute dominion over mankind, Bob Page uses VersaLife to develop a nanovirus known as the Grey Death and the cure called Ambrosia. By keeping the production and distribution of ambrosia under strict control, Page can use the disease, and by extension the cure, as a means to manipulate people into carrying out his will. One instance of this is when he coerces a US senator into making his chief lieutenant Simons the new director of FEMA. Page achieves this by offering to put the senator on the priority list for the ambrosia vaccine. Even though Page is responsible for a large portion of the suffering and violence that has swept across the United States and other parts of the world, he manages to maintain a positive image in the public eye. This is due partially to his philanthropic efforts to help those in need. Despite being both the creator of the disease and the sole controller of its cure, Page makes the following public comment. "When I was in New York recently, the suffering that I saw on the streets was unconscionable. Thomas Aquinas, a personal icon, worked his entire life to ease such terrible pain. This is the very least I could do." Page also announces that he intends to donate 10 million credit to the Clinics and Hospices Association of New York to help treat those that have caught the Grey Death. Despite Page's promises, the 10 million credit donation is nowhere to be seen. At some point, the Daedalus AI classifies its creators Majestic 12 as a terrorist organization. Daedalus then escapes from MJ-12 control and begins plotting against Page. Page later creates a new modified AI based on Daedalus called Icarus, which would remain under MJ-12 control. The production of the deadly nanovirus and its cure are possible only through the use of a universal constructor. Page had directed Majestic 12 scientists working at Area 51 to construct this machine, with Gary Savage, a former Illuminati researcher, as the chief scientist. However, when the sinister intentions of Page become apparent to Savage and his co-workers, they abandoned Majestic 12 and relocated to Vandenberg Air Force Base. This group of defected scientists would call themselves X-51 and would ally with other factions opposing MJ-12, including the National Secessionist Forces and the remnants of the Illuminati, led by Morgan Everett. The resistance against Majestic 12 is aided by J.C. Denton, who helps Morgan Everett obtain the information needed to develop a cure for the Great Death. Page orders MJ-12 to attack Vandenberg Air Force Base. The attack nearly forces X-51 to surrender, if not for the arrival of J.C. Denton. Denton also assists X-51 by obtaining schematics from MJ-12's Pasadena Ocean Lab needed to construct a fully functioning universal constructor. X-51 intends to use the universal constructor to manufacture Morgan Everett's cure for the Great Death. In response to this, Page orders the release of a nuclear missile to blow up Vandenberg or to reduce it to a thin grey smudge. The missile launch is foiled by J.C. Denton, who redirects the missile at Area 51. The missile causes great damage to Area 51's surface level buildings, but it is not enough to penetrate Area 51's deep underground bunkers where Page is operating. Page plans to merge with an artificial intelligence in order to become something comparable to a god. To achieve this goal, he first needed a powerful enough AI to merge with. The desired entity is unwittingly created by J.C. Denton when J.C. gives Daedalus access to Milnet at Vandenberg. J.C.'s actions unwittingly grants Icarus the means to merge with Daedalus, leading to the creation of the combined AI Helios. J.C. then realizes that the creation of Helios was a trap laid by Page. Even with the creation of Helios, Page still needed to be physically capable of merging with the AI. It becomes apparent that the ultimate goal of his research into nano-augmentations, as well as his effort to perfect them, was to develop a framework that would allow this merge to take place. When J.C. Denton finally arrives at Area 51, Bob Page is already in the process of uniting himself with the Helios AI. This merger would grant him complete access to every piece of information on the internet and total control over the array of UCs in Area 51. If he is successful, he would be all-seeing, all-knowing, and all-powerful, essentially making himself a god. Ultimately, however, his plans are foiled by J.C. Denton, who is ironically one of Page's own creations. Okay, let's get into some notes and trivia. In 2 of the 3 possible endings of Deus Ex, the player is required to kill Bob Page. In Deus Ex Invisible War, he is also confirmed to be dead. In Deus Ex, Page can be killed in VersaLife's headquarters in Hong Kong, as he doesn't notice J.C. when he's talking to Maggie Chow. However, doing so will not affect the plot. In Deus Ex Mankind Divided, taking place in 2029, Bob Page shows glowing eyes, a characteristic associated with nano-augmentation. According to the Art of Deus Ex universe, Page has basic nano-augmentations on his arm by the time of Deus Ex Mankind Divided. By 2052, Page has undergone augmentations to allow him to merge with Helios. His organs are depicted as extensive lines running across most of his body that look like a cross between veins and circuit lines. In Deus Ex and Deus Ex Human Revolution, Bob Page has red hair. However, in Deus Ex Mankind Divided, his hair is black. The discrepancy was never addressed. Bob Page appears to have some form of mechanical cerebral augmentation. There's 2 metallic marks on his forehead. Stanton Dowd reveals that Page did not rise up the ranks of the Illuminati in a conventional way, saying that he resisted the degrees of Illuminism as they were implemented. He never made it past Master of Tyre because he slept through Hatha yoga lessons in the mornings. It is likely that he made his way onto the Council of 5 due to Everett's influence. In 2027, Page informs Pikers TV that he cured AIDS in lab mice using nanotechnology. Page has a cyber-assimilated form encountered in Area 51 during Deus Ex, when he prepares to merge with the Helios AI and the Universal Constructor. In this form, he has control over an army of nano creatures and fairly amazing power over the elements themselves. During Deus Ex, Helios gives J.C. Denton the login details to a security terminal in Area 51. The login is Page, and the password is Uber Alles. Uber Alles is the German, of course, for above all else or above all. According to Dowd, Page would lose his temper if one of his plates was contaminated, presumably during biological experiments. In his anger, he would smash everything in his cubicle with a ball-peen hammer. Lucius de Beers mentions that Page forged laboratory data in the past, lamenting that he regretted not poisoning Page the first time he was caught doing so. It was Bob Page's idea to resurrect the grey life forms engineered by the Illuminati at Area 51 to protect Majestic 12 facilities. One of Page's greatest personal heroes is Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas was an Italian Dominican priest of the Catholic Church and an immensely influential philosopher and theologian in the tradition of scholasticism. Once Page would merge himself with the Aquinas router, he would become similar to what the Catholic Church church believes God to be, with the exception of whereas God's world consists of flesh, emotions and belief, Page's world would consist of machine logic and information. Warren Spector said he originally wanted there to be a fourth, bad ending to the game where the player sides with Bob Page, who, realizing JC Denton may actually foil his plans to merge with Helios, offers the player control of a major continent in exchange for allowing Page the time to complete his merger with Helios, but this ending was scrapped due to time constraints in the game's development. If you want to add anything more, please do in the comments, and until next time, we'll see you soon.
Is everything in place?
Almost.
What do you mean, almost?
I have spoken with Montreal. The broadcast satellites are ours when we need them. A few weeks of discomfort and the public will be primed for our recall.
And the clinics?
We control their birth strings. They will do as we say.
I still think we should wait for the referendum.
We can't afford to wait. America's Science Board convenes next month.
But the mood among the delegates is shifting. I'm positive that given more time...
No. By going public with this discovery, Seraph is forcing our hand.